You know what? I think if we could just break one bad habit that a lot of riders have, we could dramatically reduce the number of accidents that happen to motorcyclists out on the roadway. So as I'm backing out of the garage, you can see that the work continues here on the MCrider garage. The insulation's in, the floors are done, the heat and the AC is complete. I'm starting to get some acoustic foam on the walls and the ceilings to reduce the echo. There's a whole lot of work involved in getting the space ready for decent audio and video, and I want to thank everyone who supports the channel and makes all of this possible. My hope is that your contribution will lead to even better things in the future for MCrider. So my statement at the start of this video was a pretty bold one. What comes to your mind first when I say the one thing that could greatly reduce the number of crashes on the road? Well, I thought about this topic for some time, and as I was writing my thoughts down on the subject, there were several things that came to mind that would reduce the number of motorcycle crashes. Some of the honorable mentions that came to mind for me were get training. Too many riders are self-taught and they develop bad habits. Heck, even with training, bad habits still creep into our riding technique, and that's why we need continued training and why that's so important. Another topic that popped to mind for me is don't speed. If we could get riders to ride within the speed limit, I have no doubt that that would reduce the number of crashes as well. Or how about riding sober? This is a huge one and a big problem in the motorcycle community. And if you ride after drinking, you're placing yourself at the highest risk category of actually dying on a motorcycle. Or how about wearing proper gear? This is big and it could reduce the number of deaths and injuries, but would not really reduce the number of crashes. So what else is there? What other tip or technique, if you followed it religiously, would reduce the number of crashes in the motorcycle community? I want to propose to you that following distance is one of the biggest tips, if not the biggest tip, that can save your life on a motorcycle. So why do I rate following distance so high? Well, one reason is that I see it being violated on a regular basis. It's almost a daily occurrence that I see riders right on the tail of the vehicle ahead of them going down the highway at 75 miles per hour. Man, they're putting themselves at the mercy of the traffic ahead of them, that they're going to go around obstacles or that they're going to not wait till the last second to brake, so you want to maintain that gap. I once even had a friend tell me that they rode close behind 18-wheelers so that they could reduce wind buffeting on the road. And he was offering this up to me as a tip from one experienced rider on the road to another, and he didn't realize how dangerous his practice actually was. So why is following distance so important? It offers the rider two really important aspects of staying upright on a motorcycle. First is the ability to see and be seen. Without space around you, motorcycles easily fall into the blind spots of the other cars, and it becomes impossible for you to see up the road, which in my book is more important. And second, it gives you time and distance to avoid problems. I want my emergency braking skills to be top-notch, but I sure don't want to use them on a daily basis, and if you're following too close behind the vehicles in front of you, you're using your emergency braking skills more often than you should. Time and distance gives me the opportunity to make adjustments to my speed and lane position on the road without having to react to the situations at the last second. Having a good following distance seems like such a simple thing, but there are a few reasons why riders violate that principle on a regular basis. They may be like my friend who's avoiding turbulence on the road. And my answer to that is get a windshield, wear a full-face helmet, or man, if you're so wind averse, drive a car. Any small degree of wind reduction will seem silly when that 18-wheeler ahead of you sheds a huge piece of rubber from one of its tires and it's headed at your head at 70 miles per hour. The most common excuse I hear is if I leave a gap ahead of me, someone will just fill the gap. Well, my answer to that is, so what? If they fill the gap, slow down by 1 or 2 miles per hour and get your space back. If they're going too slow and you can do so safely, go around them. I live and ride in the 13th largest city in the U.S., Fort Worth, Texas, and I can always find a natural gap in the flow of traffic. Cars tend to bunch up together on the road. Stay out of those clusters at all costs. And if you make it a regular practice, you can almost always find an unoccupied piece of roadway that will allow you to see and be seen riding down the road. So we talked about following distance, but how do you properly gauge what the correct following distance is? Well, it should be 2 to 3 seconds from the vehicle ahead of you. Well, to gauge your following distance, pick out a marker such as pavement marking or a lamppost ahead of you. And when the bumper of the vehicle ahead of you passes the marker, count off seconds. 1001, 1002. If you reach the marker before you reach 1002, you're following too closely. Now, this 2-second following distance gives you the minimum amount of space to stop or swerve if the driver ahead of you suddenly stops. It also gives you a better view of potholes and other road hazards that may be up ahead. You want to increase your following distance if you tow a trailer with your motorcycle, or if you're an inexperienced rider and you haven't practiced your emergency braking in a while, you may consider increasing that following distance. That 2 seconds following distance is for an experienced rider who is proficient using the brakes. You also need a larger space cushion if your motorcycle takes longer than normal to stop. Open up a 3-second or more following distance when the pavement's slippery, or you can't see through the vehicle ahead of you, or when traffic is particularly heavy. So keep that following distance. It really is important, and it's one of those things that I see riders violating here in DFW all the time. You want to maintain that following distance. So what came to mind for you that if we could reduce it out on the roads, would reduce the number of crashes? What bad habits are riders riding with? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Or join us over on the forums where we'll continue this discussion. You can get access to the forums and find out how to get access by going to MCrider.com/support and supporting the channel. As my way of saying thank you, you'll get access to the forums and the field guide that has training exercises that you can work on any open parking lot. So till next week, guys, this is Kevin with MCrider, and I'll see you on the road. There are multiple ways to support the channel. You can become a member on YouTube at MCrider.com/member, or support the channel through Patreon at MCrider.com/support. Either way, you'll get full access to the forum and the field guides, which will further the training that we release here on a weekly basis.